Meet Josefina, an American girl. Chapter 1. Primroses. Josefina Montoya hummed to herself as she stood in the sunshine, waiting for her sisters. It was a bright, breezy morning in late summer, and the girls were going to the stream to wash clothes. Josefina's basket was full of laundry to be washed, but she didn't mind. She enjoyed going to the stream on a day like this. The sky was a deep, strong blue. Josefina wished she could touch it. She was sure it would feel smooth and cool. Josefina liked to stand just in front of her house, where the life of her papa's rancho was going on all around her. From here, she could smell the sharp scent of smoke from the kitchen fire. She could see cows and sheep grazing in the pastures. Yellow grass rolled all the way to the dark green trees on the foothills of the mountains, and the mountains zigzagged up to the sky. She could hear all the sounds of the rancho: chickens clucking, donkeys braying, dogs barking, birds chirping, workers hammering, and someone laughing. The sounds seemed like music to Josefina. The wind joined in the music when it rustled like the leaves on the cottonwood trees. And always, under it all, was the murmur of the stream. Josefina shaded her eyes. Even from this far away, she could see Papa. He sat very straight and tall on his horse. He was talking to the workers in the cornfield near the stream. The rancho had belonged to Papa's family for more than 100 years. All those years, Papa's family had cared for the animals in the land. It was not an easy life. Everyone had to work hard. Some years there was plenty of rain so that the crops grew and the animals were healthy. Some years there was not enough rain. Then the soil was dry and the animals went thirsty. But through the good times and the bad, the rancho went on. It provided everything Josefina and her family needed to live. It gave them food, clothing, and shelter. Josefina loved the rancho. It was her home. She believed it was the most beautiful place in all of New Mexico and all the world. Josefina was dancing a little dance of impatience to go with the song she was humming when her oldest sister, Anna, had come outside to join her. "Josefina," Anna said, "you remind me of a little bird singing and hopping from one foot to the other, just like that." "If I were a bird," said Josefina with a grin, "I could have flown to the stream and back 20 times by now. I've been waiting and waiting for you. Where are Francisca and Clara?" Anna sighed. "They're coming," she said. "They couldn't agree on whose turn it was to carry the washing tub." Josefina and Anna looked at each other and shook their heads. They got along beautifully. But Francisca and Clara, the middle sisters, often disagreed. It was always over some silly little thing. They reminded Josefina of goats she had seen ramming into one another head to head for no particular reason. When the girls appeared at last, it was easy to see who had won the argument. Francisca, looking pleased with herself, carried only a basket of laundry balanced on her head. Clara, looking cross, carried the large copper washing tub. Josefina put her basket into the copper tub. "I'll take one handle of the tub, Clara," she said. "We'll carry it between us." Clara said gracias, but she sounded more grumpy than grateful. Josefina knew a way to cheer her up. "Let's race to the stream," she said. "Oh no," Francisca began to say. She didn't like to do anything that might muss her clothes or her hair. But Josefina and Clara had already taken off running, so Anna and Francisca had to run too. The sisters flew down the dirt path that sloped past the fruit trees, past the fields, and to the stream. Josefina and Clara reached the stream first, plunked the tub down, kicked off their moccasins, and ran into the shallow water. Then they turned and scooped up handfuls of water to splash Anna and Francisca, who shrieked with laughter as the water hit them. "Stop! cried Francisca. She held up her basket to shield her face. Now, girls, Anna scolded gently. We've come to wash the clothes that are in the baskets, not the ones we're wearing. Josefina and Clara stopped splashing. They were out of breath anyway. They filled the copper tub with water from the stream. Josefina knelt next to the tub. She took the root of a yucca plant out of the little leather pouch she wore at her waist, and then pounded it between two rocks. The shredded yucca root made a nice lather of soapy bubbles in the water. Josefina put a dirty shirt in the tub and scrubbed it all over. Then she swooshed it around in the stream to rinse out the soap. The sun was hot on her head and her back, and the water was cool on her arms and hands. Josefina liked to think about how the water started out as snow on the mountain tops. It melted and flowed all the way down to this little pool in the stream, without ever losing its cool freshness. She knew that it was water that brought life to the rancho. Water from the stream was channeled into ditches so that it would flow through the fields. Without water, nothing would grow. Josefina twisted the shirt to wring it out and watched drops of water fall back into the stream and go on their way. Then she carefully spread the shirt on top of a bush. The sun and the breeze will dry the clothes quickly today, she said as she washed some socks. Yes, agreed Anna. Mamma would have said, You see, my girls? God has sent you a good drying day. Monday is laundry day, even in heaven. And then Mamma would have said, Pull your rebozos up to shade your faces, girls. You don't want your skin to look like old leather, added Francisca, who was always careful of her skin. The sisters laughed softly together and then grew quiet. Speaking of their mamma always made them thoughtful. Mamma had died a little more than a year ago. The sorrow of her death was always in their hearts. Josefina looked at the stream flowing past and listened to its low, rushing sound. Since Mamma had died, she learned a truth that was both bitter and sweet. She had learned that love does not end. Josefina would always love Mamma, and so she would always miss her. Josefina knew her sisters were also thinking about Mamma, because Francisca said, Look, see those yellow flowers across the stream? She pointed with a soapy hand. Aren't they evening primroses? They're in the shade, so they haven't wilted yet this morning. Mamma used to love those flowers. Yes, she did, said Clara, agreeing with Francisca for once. Why don't you go pick some, Josefina? You could dry them and put them in your memory box. All right, said Josefina. Papa had given her a little wooden box of Mamma's. Josefina called it her memory box because in it she kept small things that reminded her of Mamma, such as a piece of Mamma's favorite lavender-scented soap. The box had been made by Josefina's great-great-grandfather. On its top there was a carving of the sun coming up over the highest mountain and shining on the rancho, just the way Josefina saw it rise every morning. The quickest, driest way to the Primroses was to walk across a fallen log that made a narrow bridge over the stream. Josefina climbed up onto the log. She held her arms out for balance and began to walk across. Oh, do be careful, warned Anna. Because she was the oldest sister, Anna had become a motherly warrior since Mamma died. Josefina did not think of herself as a brave person at all. She was afraid of snakes and lightning and guns, and shy of people she didn't know. But she wasn't afraid of crossing the log, which wasn't very high above the stream anyway. She walked across, picked the primroses, and tucked the stems into her pouch. She let the yellow flowers stick out so that they wouldn't be crushed. On the way back, she decided to tease Anna and make her laugh. She pretended to lose her balance. She waved her arms wildly up and down and wobbled more and more with each step. Josefina Montoya, said Anna, who saw that she was fooling. How can you be so shy and sweet in company when you're so playful with your sisters? You tease the life out of me. You'll make me old before my time. You sound just like our grandfather, said Josefina as she jumped to the ground. She pretended to talk like Abuelito. Yes, yes, my beautiful granddaughters. This was the finest trip I've ever made. Oh, the adventures, the adventures! But this was my last trip. Oh, how these trips age me. They make me old before my time, all the sisters sang out together. Abuelito said the same thing after every journey. Abuelito was their mama's father. He was a trader, and once each year he organized a huge caravan. The caravan was made up of many carts pulled by oxen and many mules carrying packs. The carts and the mules were loaded with wool, hides, and blankets in New Mexico. Then the caravan traveled more than 1,000 miles south to Mexico City. The trail the caravans used was called the Camino Real. When Abuelito got to Mexico City, he traded the goods he'd brought them from New Mexico for things from all over the world. He traded for silk and cotton goods and lace, for iron tools, paper, ink, books, fine dishes, coffee, and sugar. Then the caravan would load up and start the long trip back to New Mexico. Abuelito had been gone more than 6 months. Josefina and her sisters were excited because they expected Abuelito's caravan to return any day now. The rancho was always the caravan's last stop before the town of Santa Fe, where Abuelito lived. I can't wait until Abuelito comes, said Josefina. She thought that the arrival of the caravan was the most exciting thing that happened on the rancho. The wagons were full of treasures to be traded in Santa Fe, but the most important treasure the caravan brought was Abuelito himself, safe and sound and full of wonderful stories. Sometimes the caravan went through sandstorms that were so bad they blocked out the sun. Sometimes robbers or wild animals attacked the caravan. Sometimes the caravan had to cross flooded rivers or waterless deserts. Abuelito loved to tell them about his adventures, and the sisters loved to listen. I am going to go on the caravan with Abuelito someday, said Francisca, dreamily swirling a shirt in the stream. I'll see everything there is to see, and then I'll settle down and live in Mexico City with Mama's sister, our Tia Dolores. I am sure she lives in a grand house and knows all the most elegant people. Clara rolled her eyes and scrubbed hard with her soap. That's ridiculous, she said. We hardly know Tia Dolores. We haven't seen her for the whole 10 years she's been living in Mexico City. Francisca smiled a superior smile. I am older than you are, Clara, she said. I was nearly 6 when Tia Dolores left. I remember her. Well, said Clara tartly, if she remembers you, I am sure she won't want you to live with her. Francisca made a face and was about to say something sharp when Josefina piped up. Ana, said Josefina, trying to keep the peace, what do you hope Abuelito will bring on the caravan? Shoes for my 2 little boys, Ana answered. I hope he brings that plow Papa needs, said Clara. She was always practical. How dull, said Francisca. I'm hoping for some new lace. You think too much of how you look, said Clara. Francisca smirked. Perhaps you ought, she began, but Josefina interrupted again. Well, I know one thing we all hope Abuelito will bring, she said cheerfully. Chocolate. Lots, said Francisca and Clara. They spoke at exactly the same moment, which made them laugh at each other. You haven't said what you are wishing for, Anna said to Josefina. She was squeezing water out of a petticoat. Perhaps you're hoping for a surprise? Perhaps, said Josefina, smiling. The truth was, she didn't know how to name what she wished for. What she wanted most was for her sisters to be at peace with one another. She wanted the household to be running smoothly. and Papa to be happy and laughing again. She longed for life to be the way it was when Mama was alive. Right after Mama died, Josefina had felt that the world should end. How could life go on for the rest of them without Mama? It had seemed wrong, even cruel somehow, that nothing stopped. The sun rose and set. Seasons passed from one to another. There were still chores to be done every day. There were clothes to be washed, weeds to pull, animals to be fed, socks to be mended. But as the year passed, Josefina began to see that the steady rhythm of life on the rancho was her best comfort. Mama seemed close by when Josefina and her sisters were together, doing the laundry, or mending, or cooking, or cleaning. The sisters tried hard to do the chores the way Mama had taught them. Every day they tried to remember their prayers and their manners and how to do things right. But it was not easy without Mama's loving guidance. Josefina looked at the primroses in her pouch and thought of Mama. Mama had had such faith in them all. She brought out the best in them. Now that she was gone, they struggled. Francisca and Clara squabbled. Anna worried. Josefina often felt lost and unsure. And Papa was very quiet. Josefina sighed. She didn't see how the caravan could bring anything to help them. Here comes a surprise, said Clara, but not one you will like, Josefina. Josefina looked up. Oh no, she said. It was a small herd of goats. They were coming down the hill to drink from the stream. Josefina disliked all goats, and one goat in particular. The biggest, oldest, meanest goat was named Florecita. Florecita was a sneaky, nasty bully. She bit, she rammed, and she'd eat anything. Josefina was afraid of her. She frowned when she spotted Florecita at the edge of the herd. Now, Josefina, said Anna when she saw her frowning, you mustn't dislike these goats. This is our herd. Most of the rancho's sheep and goats were still in the summer pastures up in the mountains, but this herd was kept close to the rancho to provide milk to drink and to make into cheese. It was a small herd that had belonged to Mama. She left the herd to Josefina and her sisters when she died. Josefina wished she hadn't. Mama had always protected Josefina from the things she feared and disliked, and Mama had protected Josefina from the goats. The goats are everything you are not, Josefina, Mama used to say. They are bold and loud and disagreeable and mean. It's no wonder you like them. Josefina was sure that Mama never intended her to have anything to do with the goats, so she avoided them as much as possible. But right now, Josefina saw Florecita head straight for her. She wants the flowers in your pouch, warned Francisca. Josefina put one hand over the flowers. She did not want Florecita to have them. They might be the last primroses of the year. Shoo, she said to Florecita feebly, waving her free hand. Go away. Shoo, 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 cried her sisters with more force. Florecita didn't even slow down. She kept walking steadily toward Josefina. Her yellow eyes were fixed on the primroses in Josefina's pouch. Wave a stick at her, suggested Francisca. Splash her, suggested Anna. Throw a pebble at her, suggested Clara. But Josefina backed away. She had been poked by Florecita's sharp horns before, and she had no wish to be poked again. She scrambled up and stood on the log over the stream. Still, Florecita did not stop coming. Josefina took one backward step, then another. Then, splash! She missed her footing and fell off the log into the stream. It was very shallow, so she landed hard on her bottom. Oh no! She wailed. She saw that all but one sprig of the primroses had fallen out of her pouch. The flowers were floating on the water. Florecita snatched them up in her mean-looking teeth. She chewed them, looking satisfied. Then the goat turned and sauntered off to rejoin the herd. Are you all right? Anna asked kindly. She helped Josefina to her feet. You really must not let Florecita bully you like that. Josefina wrung out her skirt and smiled. I tried to stand up to Florecita, she joked. But I ended up sitting down, didn't I? She laughed along with her sisters, but she was annoyed with Florecita. She was even more annoyed with herself for letting Florecita scare her. As she looked at the one sprig of primroses left in her pouch, she thought of another thing she wanted from that caravan. She thought of another thing she wanted that the caravan could not possibly bring her: the courage to stand up to Florecita. Chapter 2. Abuelito's Surprise. The afternoon sun was so strong it made the ground shimmer. Josefina dipped the drinking gourd into the water jar and took a long drink. Like everyone else on the rancho, she was up earlier than usual after her siesta, the midday rest. Papa had heard that the caravan was not far away. It would come this afternoon. Everyone was eagerly bustling about, preparing for its arrival. Josefina poured out some water into her cupped hand and held it to her face, cooling first one cheek and then the other. Then she opened her hand and let the water fall on a small cluster of flowers below. Mamma had planted these flowers, which grew in a protected corner of the back courtyard. Josefina's house was built around two square courtyards. The front courtyard was surrounded by rooms where Josefina and her family lived. The back courtyard was surrounded by workrooms, storerooms, and rooms for the servants. The two courtyards were connected by a narrow passageway. Mamma, with Josefina at her side, had tended her flowers in the back courtyard with great devotion. She started them from seeds sent to her from Mexico City by her sister, Tia Dolores. Josefina remembered how pleased Mamma had always been when the caravan brought her some seeds from Tia Dolores. It had always seemed like a miracle to Josefina that the small brown seeds could, with water and Mamma's care, grow into beautiful, colorful flowers. Since Mamma died, Josefina had cared for the flowers by herself as best she could. Just now, she sprinkled the rest of the water in the drinking gourd on them. I'm glad you remember to water your Mamma's flowers, Josefina. Josefina turned and saw Papa. He was so tall she had to lift her chin to look at his face. Things grew well for your Mamma, didn't they? Papa asked. Yes, Papa, Josefina answered. Mamma loved her flowers. So she did, said Papa, dipping the drinking gourd into the water jar. And I hear Florecita likes flowers too. Josefina blushed. Don't worry, said Papa. You'll stand up to Florecita when you're ready. Josefina smiled a little bashfully. She watched Papa drink his water. Papa's eyebrows were so thick he looked fierce until you saw the kindness in his eyes. All the sisters were respectful and rather shy of Papa. He had always been saving of his words, but since Mamma had died, he'd become especially quiet. Josefina knew his silence didn't come from sternness or anger. It came from sadness. She knew because she often felt the same way. Mamma used to say that Josefina and Papa were alike. They were both quiet, except with their family, but full of ideas inside. Papa didn't have Mamma's easy manner with people. It had always been Mamma who remembered the names of everyone in the village, from the oldest person to the newest baby. She remembered to ask if an illness was better, or how the chickens were laying. She gave advice on everything from growing squash to dyeing wool. Mamma was well loved and well respected. She was Papa's partner. She ran the household while he ran the rancho. Josefina knew that Papa missed Mamma with all of his heart. Papa tipped the gourd so that the last drops of water fell on the flowers. He smiled at Josefina, then strode off out the gate toward the fields. Josefina carried the water jar to the kitchen. "Oh, there you are, Josefina," said Anna. Her hands were covered with flour, so she had to use the back of her wrist to brush the sweat off of her forehead. The heat of the cooking fires was making her face red and her hair stick out. Pots full of delicious smelling concoctions sizzled, steamed, and burbled over the fires. There was always a big fandango in the evening after the caravan arrived. Neighbors from the village, friends from the Indian pueblo, and all the people traveling with the caravan were invited. They came to Josefina's family's house to eat and drink and sing and dance and celebrate the caravan's safe return. Mama had always known just what to do to prepare for the fandango, but this was the first time Anna was in charge. Josefina could see that Anna was overwhelmed, even though Carmen, the cook, was helping her. Two other servants were making tortillas as quickly as they could. Francisca and Clara were helping, too. They were peeling, chopping, and stirring as fast as their hands could move. "Thank you for the water," said Anna. She handed Josefina a large basket. "Now please go to the kitchen garden and get me some onions." "I'll come too," Francisca said. "We need tomatoes." The kitchen garden was just outside the back courtyard. Josefina always thought the garden looked like a blanket spread on the ground. The neat rows of fruits and vegetables and herbs made colorful stripes. The squash made a yellow stripe. The chilies made a red stripe. The pumpkins were orange. The melons were light green. And the beans were dark green. In between the rows, the earth was a dark reddish brown, thanks to the water the girls carried up from the stream every day. A stick fence like a blanket's fringe surrounded the garden to keep hungry animals out. The sisters were all proud of the garden. Josefina had gathered a basket full of onions when suddenly she stood up. Francisca stood up too, and the girls looked at each other. "Is it?" Francisca began. "Shh," said Josefina, holding her finger to her lips. She tilted her head and listened hard. Yes, there it was. She could hear the rumble and squeak of wooden wheels that meant only one thing. The caravan was coming. Francisca heard too. The girls smiled at each other, grabbed their baskets, and ran as fast as they could back to the gate. "The caravan! It's coming!" they shouted. "Anna, Clara, it's coming!" They dropped their baskets outside the kitchen door as Clara rushed out to meet them. The three girls dashed across the front courtyard and flew up the steps of the tower in the south wall. The window in the tower was narrow, so Josefina knelt and looked out the lower part. Francisca and Clara stood behind her and looked over her head. At first, all they saw was a cloud of dust stirring on the road from the village. Then the sound of the wheels grew louder and louder. Soon they heard the jingle of harnesses, dogs barking, people shouting, and the village church bell ringing. Next, they saw soldiers coming over the hill, with the sun glinting on their buttons and guns. Then came mule after mule. It looked like 100 or more to Josefina. The mules were carrying heavy packs strapped to their backs. She counted 30 carts pulled by plodding oxen. The carts lumbered along on their two big wooden wheels. There were four-wheeled wagons as well, and so many people, too many to count. There were muleteers, cart drivers, traders, and whole families of travelers. There were herders driving sheep, goats, and cattle. Villagers and Indians from the nearby pueblo walked along with the caravan to welcome it. Francisca stood on tiptoe to see better. She put her hands on Josefina's shoulders. "Don't you love to think about all the places the caravan has been?" she asked. "And all the places the things it brings come from too?" "Yes," said Josefina. "They come from all over the world, up the Camino Real, right to our door." Most of the caravans stopped and set up camp midway between the village and the rancho. But many muleteers and some of the cart drivers camped closer to the house, in a shady area next to the stream. Josefina saw Papa ride his horse up to one of the big four-wheeled wagons. He waved to its driver. "That's Abuelito!" Josefina cried. She pointed to the driver of the four-wheeled wagon. "Look! Papa is greeting him! See, there he is!" Francisca leaned forward. "Who's that tall woman sitting next to Abuelito?" She wondered aloud. She's greeting Papa as if she knows him. But Josefina and Clara had already turned away from the window. They hurried down from the tower. Josefina ran to the kitchen and stuck her head in the door. "Come on," she said to Ana. "Papa and Abuelito are on their way up to the house." Oh dear," fussed Ana as she wiped her hands and smoothed her hair. "There is still so much to do. I'll never be ready for the fandango." When Papa led Abuelito's big wagon up to the front gate, Josefina was the first to run out and greet it. Francisca, Clara, and Ana were close behind. Josefina thought she'd never seen a sight as wonderful as Abuelito's happy face. He handed the reins to the woman next to him and climbed down. "My beautiful granddaughters," said Abuelito. He kissed them as he named them. "Ana and Francisca, Clara, and my little Josefina. Oh, God bless you. God bless you. It is good to see you. This was the finest trip I've ever made. Oh, the adventures, the adventures! But I am getting too old for these trips. They make me old before my time. This is my last trip. My last." "Oh, Abuelito," said Francisca, taking his arm and laughing. "You say that every time." Abuelito threw his head back and laughed too. "Ah, but this time I mean it," he said. "I've brought a surprise for you." He turned and held out his hand to the tall woman on the wagon. "Here she is, your Tia Dolores. She has come back to live with her mama and me in Santa Fe. Now I have no reason to go to Mexico City ever again." Josefina and her sisters looked so surprised. Papa and Abuelito laughed at them. Tia Dolores took Abuelito's hand and gracefully swung herself down from the wagon seat. Papa smiled at her. "You see, Dolores, you have surprised my daughters as much as you surprised me," he said. "Welcome to our home." "Gracias," Tia Dolores answered. She smiled at Papa and then turned to the sisters. "I have looked forward to this moment for a long time," she said to them. "I've wanted to see all of you, my dear sister's children." She spoke to each one in turn. "You're very like your mamma, Ana," she said. "And Francisca, you've grown so tall and so beautiful. Dear Clara, you were barely 3 years old when I left. Do you remember?" Tia Dolores took Josefina's hand in both of her own. She bent forward so that she could look closely at Josefina's face. "At last I meet you, Josefina," she said. "You weren't even born when I left, and look, here you are, already a lovely young girl." Tia Dolores straightened again. Her eyes were bright as she looked at the sisters. "I'm so happy to see you all. It's good to be back." The girls were still too surprised to say much, but they smiled shyly at Tia Dolores. Ana was the first to collect herself. "Please, Abuelito and Tia Dolores, come inside and have a cool drink. I'm sure you're tired and thirsty." She led Tia Dolores inside the gate. "You must excuse us, Tia Dolores," she said. "We haven't prepared any place for you to sleep." "Goodness, Ana," said Tia Dolores. "You didn't know I was coming. I didn't know myself, really, until the last minute. I've been caring for my dear aunt in Mexico City all these years. Bless her soul. She died this past spring. It was just before Abuelito's caravan arrived. I had no reason to stay, so I joined the caravan to come home." "Yes," Abuelito said to the girls. "Your grandmother will be so pleased. Wait till Dolores and I get to Santa Fe the day after tomorrow. What a surprise, eh?" Josefina could not take her eyes off of Tia Dolores as everyone sat down together in the family sala. The room's thick walls and small windows kept it cool even in the heat of the afternoon. Francisca whispered, "Isn't Tia Dolores' dress beautiful? Her sleeves must be the latest style from Europe." But Josefina hadn't noticed Tia Dolores' sleeves or anything else about her clothes. "This is Tia Dolores," she kept thinking. "This is Mama's sister." Josefina studied Tia Dolores to see if she looked like Mama. Mama had been the older of the two sisters, but Tia Dolores was much taller. She didn't have Mama's soft, rounded beauty, Josefina decided, nor her pale skin or dark, smooth hair. Everything about Tia Dolores was sharper somehow. Her hands were bigger. Her face was more narrow. She had gray eyes and dark red hair that was springy. Her voice didn't sound like Mama's either. Mama's voice was high and breathy, like notes from a flute. Tia Dolores' voice had a graceful sound. It was as low and clear as notes from a harp string. But when Tia Dolores laughed, Josefina was startled. Her laugh sounded so much like Mama's. If Josefina closed her eyes, it might be Mama laughing. There was a great deal of laughter in the family sala that afternoon, as Abuelito told the story of his trip. Josefina sat next to Abuelito, her arms wrapped around her knees. She was happy. It reminded her of the old days to sit with her family this way and listen to Abuelito tell about his adventures. "This was the most remarkable trip I've ever had," said Abuelito. "Oh, the trip to Mexico City was dull enough, but on the way home, bless my soul, what an adventure! We were in terrible danger. Terrible, terrible. And your Tia Dolores saved us." "Oh, but I didn't," Tia Dolores began. "No, no, no, my dear daughter, you did save us," said Abuelito. He turned to Papa and the girls. "You see," he said, "I was so glad that Dolores was going to come home with me. I finished all my business in Mexico City as quickly as I could. All went well until the day I came to Dolores' house to load up her belongings. Then the trouble began." He lowered his voice, pretending he did not want Tia Dolores to hear. "I had forgotten how stubborn your Tia Dolores is. She is perhaps the most stubborn woman in the world. What did she insist that we bring? You will never guess. Her piano." Amazed, the girls all repeated, "Her piano?" "Yes," said Abuelito. He was so pleased to have astonished them all. "Such fuss and trouble. I told her it was too heavy and too big, but she said she'd sooner leave all her other belongings than her piano. So I grumbled, but I allowed the piano to be packed and loaded it onto one of my wagons. We left Mexico City, and I complained about the piano every mile of the way." He shook his head. "Your Tia Dolores never said a word. She just let me go on and on complaining. Well, then we came to Dead Man's Canyon, and do you know what happened?" "What?" asked the girls. "Thieves!" cried Abuelito in a voice so loud the girls jumped. "Thieves attacked the caravan. Oh, you've never seen such a fight. Shouting, sword fights, gunshots. The wagon with the piano was just behind ours. We saw two thieves climb up on it and push the driver to the ground. Then 6 or 7 of our men rushed over and wrestled with the two thieves, trying to pull them off the wagon. With all the yelling and fighting, the oxen harnessed to that wagon were scared. They bumbled into each other trying to get away. The wagon lurched forward, right to the edge of a deep gully, and then crash! Over it fell, into the gully." The girls gasped. Abuelito put his hand on his heart. "God bless us and save us all. What a sound that piano made when it fell," he said. "A thud, and then a hollow boom that rumbled like musical thunder. It sounded like a giant had strummed all the keys in one stroke. The terrible sound bounced off the walls of Dead Man's Canyon It seemed to grow louder with every echo. The thieves were terrified. They had never heard such a sound in all their lives. Well, didn't they take off as if they were on fire? All of them ran away as fast as their thieving legs could carry them. I'll bet they are still running. Everyone laughed. Abuelito laughed most of all, remembering with pleasure how frightened the thieves were. When he stopped laughing, he said, "After that, I put the piano in my wagon. My own wagon. I never complained again. And so you see, Dolores did save us all by insisting that we bring her piano." "Well done, Dolores," said Papa. "But Abuelito," said Josefina, "was the piano badly hurt?" Tia Dolores answered. "No, child," she said. "One leg is splintered and the top is scratched, but I think it will sound just fine." "Oh," Josefina blurted, "may we see it?" "No, no, no," said Abuelito. "We had to rebuild the crate. It's too much trouble to open it up. You'll just have to come to Santa Fe sometime to hear your aunt play." Papa cleared his throat. "The girls and I have never seen or heard a piano," he said. "May I open the crate? I'll close it up afterward." Tia Dolores turned to Abuelito. "Please," she said. "I'd like the girls to hear the piano." Abuelito laughed and shrugged. "Of course, my dear, of course," he said. "How can I say no to you after you saved my caravan?" Tia Dolores kissed him. Then she and Papa led the girls outside to the wagon. The piano was in a big wooden crate. Papa pried a few boards off the crate. Tia Dolores climbed into the wagon. She reached into the crate and pushed back the lid that protected the piano's keys. She couldn't stand up straight, and she didn't have much room to move her hands, but she played a chord. And then, as Papa and the four girls listened, she played a spirited tune. Josefina felt the music thrum through her whole body. It made her shiver with delight. The notes were muffled because the piano was in the wooden crate, but to Josefina the notes sounded as beautiful as bells all chiming together in harmony. She had never heard music like the piano's music before. The notes were so full, so perfect and delicate, that Josefina imagined she could almost see them as they filled the air. Josefina listened. She realized that through the music, Tia Dolores was telling them how happy she was. The music expressed her happiness better than words ever could, because it made all of them hearing it happy too. Josefina stood still, barely breathing, listening hard until Tia Dolores stopped. "Oh dear," said Tia Dolores. "I'm afraid the piano's a little out of tune and I'm a little out of practice." Gently, she closed the lid over the keys. Josefina wanted very much to touch the piano keys. She wanted to make the wonderful music happen herself, but she was too shy to ask Tia Dolores, so she said nothing. "Gracias, Dolores," said Papa as he helped her climb down from the wagon. "Oh yes, gracias," said Ana, Francisca, and Clara. "You must all come to see me in Santa Fe," said Tia Dolores, smiling. "I'll play for you, and I'll show you how to play the piano yourselves." The three oldest sisters followed Tia Dolores back inside the house, but Josefina stood next to the wagon until Papa had finished closing the crate. She wanted to stay near the piano as long as she could. She knew she would never forget the way Tia Dolores' music had sounded, or the way it had made her feel. When Papa was finished, he saw Josefina. "You liked the piano music, didn't you?" he asked. "Oh yes, Papa," answered Josefina. "I didn't want Tia Dolores to stop." Papa smiled. "I didn't either," he said. "Well, there will be plenty of fiddle music at the fandango tonight. You'd better go in now and get ready. The guests will be coming soon." "Yes, Papa," Josefina answered. She took one last look at the piano crate, then started back inside. As she walked, she thought, I wish there was some way I could let Tia Dolores know how much I loved the piano music. I wish I could give her something in return. But what? Later, when Josefina walked into the back courtyard, she knew the answer to her question. She thought of a fine gift to give Tia Dolores. I'll give it to her during the fandango tonight, she decided. She was pleased with her idea. She thought Tia Dolores would be pleased, too. Chapter 3. A Gift for Tia Dolores. Stand still, Josefina, said Francisca. She was slowly and carefully brushing Josefina's hair with a brush made of stiff grasses. Abuelito had brought all four sisters beautiful blue silk hair ribbons. Francisca had put herself in charge of tying them for Josefina and Clara. Josefina fidgeted. She was grateful to Francisca, but she wished she'd hurry up. Josefina wanted to be ready for the fandango early so that she could prepare her gift for Tia Dolores. Clara tied her sash neatly, then undid it and tied it all over again. Francisca had already brushed Clara's hair and put the blue ribbon in it. Do you think I look all right? Clara asked. Josefina and Francisca were surprised. It wasn't like Clara to worry about her appearance. Josefina was afraid Francisca might say something unkind. She was glad when Francisca looked at Clara for a moment and then said seriously, You look very pretty. The blue suits you. Clara beamed. She reached up to touch her hair ribbon. It made Josefina happy to see her sisters getting along. It's because Tia Dolores is here, she thought. Francisca and Clara were in complete agreement about Tia Dolores. They both admired her very much. Josefina smiled to herself. Francisca and Clara would be pleased when they saw her gift for Tia Dolores, too. Finished, said Francisca. She gave Josefina's ribbon one last adjustment. You look fine. Use your wings and fly away now, Josefina. I can tell you're anxious to go. Gracias, Francisca, Josefina called back over her shoulder as she hurried from the room. The sun had set. Cool evening air slid down from the mountains, bringing darkness with it. Small bonfires were lit in the front courtyard for light and for warmth. As she crossed the courtyard, Josefina could hear Ana and Carmen thanking some neighbor women who had come early with dishes of food for the fandango. No one noticed Josefina slip into the kitchen. She took a small water jar and slipped out again. In the back courtyard, Josefina knelt in front of Mama's flowers. One by one, she picked all the freshest and brightest colored flowers. She put them in the water jar. Josefina was careful to break the flowers off near the ground so that the stems were long, but she didn't disturb the roots. There were not very many flowers, so Josefina had to pick almost all of them in order to have a bouquet anywhere near big enough and beautiful enough to give to Tia Dolores. The corner looked bare when she was through. It's all right, she told herself. Mama would approve. After all, Tia Dolores was the one who sent Mama the seeds, so Tia Dolores should be the one to enjoy the flowers. They should be a gift for her. Josefina straightened the flowers in the water jar. The bouquet looked scrawny somehow. So Josefina slipped the blue ribbon out of her hair and tied it around the flowers in a big bow. There, she thought with satisfaction. That looks much better. She wanted the bouquet to be a surprise for everyone, so she looked around for a place to hide it. She had just entered the narrow passageway between the front and back courtyards when she bumped into Papa. What's that you've got there? Asked Papa, peering at Josefina over the tops of the flowers. They're a gift for Tia Dolores, explained Josefina. I wanted to give her something to thank her for the music. It was too dark to see Papa's face clearly, but Josefina could tell by his voice that he was smiling. I think that is a very fine idea, he said. I'll tell you what. I am going to make a formal introduction of Tia Dolores to all our friends and neighbors at the fandango tonight. After I do, perhaps you will give Tia Dolores the bouquet." "Yes, I will," said Josefina happily. "Very well," said Papa. "It will be our secret until then." "Gracias, Papa," said Josefina. After Papa left, Josefina put the jar of flowers under the bench in the passageway. No one would see it there, and she would be able to fetch it quickly when it was time to give it to Tia Dolores. More guests arrived every moment. They call out a chorus of greetings to each other as they cross the front courtyard to the gran sala, the family's finest room. Because this was a very special night, the gran sala was lit with candles. Their wavering light made the guests' shadows swoop and dance on the walls. Soon the musicians struck up a lively tune on their fiddles, and the real dancing began. It seemed to Josefina that the dancers flew around the room with as much ease as their shadows had. Their feet hardly seemed to touch the floor at all, as they whirled by in a blur of bright colors. No one whirled faster than Francisca. No one looked happier or more beautiful. In the candlelight, her dark curly hair seemed to shine like a black stone in the stream. And Josefina was glad to see that Ana had put her responsibilities aside for a while and was dancing with her husband, Tomas. All around the sides of the gran sala, older ladies sat holding babies on their laps so that the babies' young mothers could dance. The old ladies clapped the babies' hands in time with the music. Josefina and Clara were still too young to be allowed to dance, so they stood outside in the courtyard and leaned on the windowsill, looking in at the dancers. Josefina's feet danced along to the music. It was impossible to be still. The music seemed to twist and turn in the air, wind its way around all the dancers, and find its way outside to tickle Josefina's feet so that they just had to move. Every once in a while, over the music and conversation, Josefina and Clara could hear Abuelito's voice. He'd be saying, "Boom! What a sound! Those thieves ran off, and I'll bet they're running still." Clara and Josefina grinned at one another. Abuelito was telling the story about Tia Dolores' piano over and over again. The girls noticed that the number of thieves grew larger each time Abuelito told the story. The person both girls liked best to watch was Tia Dolores. She was easy to pick out of the crowd because she was so tall, and because no one else had hair of quite such a rich, dark red. "She dances well, doesn't she?" said Clara as Tia Dolores swept by. "Yes," said Josefina. "She's as graceful as the music." Soon Papa came by the window and nodded to Josefina. Josefina nodded back. "What's that all about?" asked Clara. "It's a surprise," said Josefina, excited and smiling. "Stay here, and you'll see." She scurried across the courtyard to the passageway where she'd left the bouquet. It was very dark. Josefina bent down and felt under the bench for the water jar with the bouquet in it. It wasn't there. "That's odd," she thought. Josefina stood up, perplexed, and then she saw the jar. It was lying on its side near one wall. It was empty. "Where's the bouquet?" Josefina wondered anxiously. She looked all around the passageway. The bouquet was nowhere to be seen, but an odd white shape looming in the back courtyard caught her eye. She walked toward it and gasped. Oh no! The white shape was Florecita. The goat must have broken out of her pen and found her way into the back courtyard. Josefina did not want to put Florecita back in her pen. When she turned away to get help, she stepped on something. She stooped down and picked it up. At first, she didn't know what it was. And then she saw. It was a few green stems held together by a trampled, mud-stained blue ribbon. Suddenly, Josefina realized what had happened. Florecita had eaten the bouquet. This was all that was left of the flowers she had picked for Tia Dolores. But that was not the worst of it. At that instant, Josefina saw what Florecita was doing. Calm as could be, Florecita was standing smack in the middle of what used to be Mama's flowers. She was chewing a mouthful of stems. One hollyhock, root and all, dangled from her mouth. Josefina could see that no other flowers were left. All that remained were some scraggly, chewed, crushed, and broken stems, and a scattering of leaves and petals on the ground. Florecita turned her nasty yellow eyes on Josefina. The goat looked very satisfied with herself. Josefina was furious. Florecita, she hissed, in a ferocious whisper. You awful, awful animal. You've ruined everything. Josefina was so angry that she forgot to be afraid of Florecita. She marched right up to the goat and yanked the hollyhock out of her mouth. Florecita looked surprised. She looked even more surprised when Josefina swatted her on the back with the stems, saying, How could you? You ate the bouquet and you killed Mama's flowers. Oh, I hate you, Florecita. Josefina shoved Florecita hard. Then she took hold of one of Florecita's fearsome horns and pulled with all her strength. Come with me, she said. Josefina dragged Florecita to her pen. She slammed the gate shut. I hate you, Florecita, she said again. I'll hate you forever. Josefina ran all the way back to the bench in the passageway and slumped down on it. There was nothing to be done. She looked at the dirty blue ribbon and the chewed stems wilting in her hand and fought back tears of disappointment. Josefina, a voice said, what are you doing here in the darkness? Josefina looked up. She saw Tia Dolores coming toward her. Josefina could hardly talk. She showed the sad-looking stems to Tia Dolores. This was a bouquet for you, she said in a shaky voice. But our goat Florecita found it and ate it. And she killed Mama's flowers, too. Ah, said Tia Dolores. She sat next to Josefina on the bench. Slowly, Josefina explained. I wanted to give you a gift to thank you for the piano music, she said. So I picked all the best flowers. I tied my new hair ribbon around them. The flowers were so pretty. They grew from the seeds that you sent Mama. I've been watering them since Mama died because I know she loved them. Now there are none left. There will never be any more. The flowers are dead. Tia Dolores was a good listener. She sat still and gave Josefina her full attention. Neither one of them noticed the noise and laughter coming from the gran sala. The fandango seemed far away. When Josefina was finished explaining, Tia Dolores said, Show me your Mama's flowers. Josefina led Tia Dolores to the corner of the back courtyard. You see, she said, there is nothing left. Tia Dolores knelt down. She looked at what was left of the flowers. She scooped up a handful of soil and rubbed it between her fingers. Gently, she touched the short, bitten-off stems. Then she smiled at Josefina. Don't worry, she said. Your Mama planted these flowers well. The roots are deep and strong. You've kept them healthy by watering the soil. They'll live, I promise. She stood and brushed the soil off her hands. Do you like caring for flowers? She asked. Josefina nodded. I used to help Mama, she said. I brought some seeds with me when I left Mexico City, said Tia Dolores. Perhaps you and I can plant them tomorrow. Oh, could we? Said Josefina. Yes, said Tia Dolores. We'll wash your hair ribbon too. Now we had better go back to the gran sala. Papa met them at the door. Josefina, he said. Where have you been? I introduced Tia Dolores, but then I couldn't find you. Oh, Papa, said Josefina. Florecita ate the bouquet. And then she almost ruined all the rest of Mama's flowers. Ah, that's too bad, said Papa sadly. He looked around the courtyard. Is Florecita loose? No, said Josefina. I dragged her back to her pen and shut the gate. You did? Asked Papa. But I thought you were afraid of Florecita. I am, said Josefina. I mean, I was. I guess just now I was so angry at Florecita I forgot. Papa laughed. Well, we never know where our courage is going to come from, he said. I am sorry about the flowers, though. Tia Dolores says the flowers will be all right, said Josefina. She's going to help me plant new seeds tomorrow. Is she? Said Papa. He turned and smiled at Tia Dolores. Well then, Dolores, he said. That means you'll have to come back often. You'll have to visit and see how the flowers are coming along. I will, said Tia Dolores. God willing. Come inside and have something to eat now, said Papa. Anna would never forgive us if we didn't enjoy the food she's prepared. Josefina followed Papa and Tia Dolores into the gran sala. She grinned to herself. I guess the caravan didn't need to bring me the courage to stand up to Florecita after all, she thought. It turns out I already had it. But I never would have found out if I hadn't picked a bouquet for Tia Dolores. An idea danced through Josefina's head just then. As quick as the flicker of starlight on water, the idea appeared and disappeared. But it was an idea that would come again and again all the rest of the night and through the next day, until it grew from an idea into a heartfelt hope. Chapter 4. Josefina's Idea. Never had Josefina been more eager to begin a day. The next morning, she was up even earlier than usual. Quietly, so that she wouldn't waken Francisca or Clara, Josefina rolled up the sheepskins and blankets that were her bed. She dressed and slipped outside. The moon hung low in the sky. It cast such a strong, pure light that everything was bathed in silver or shadow. Josefina went to the kitchen. Early as it was, Carmen was already there grinding corn for the morning meal. Her husband was starting the kitchen fire. Carmen nodded good morning to Josefina and handed her a water jar to fill at the stream, just as she did every morning. But this morning was different for Josefina. This was the morning of the day Tia Dolores was going to spend with her and her sisters. The huge front gate was closed, so Josefina stepped through the small door cut into the gate. She closed the door behind her and ran across the moon-washed ground to Abuelito's wagon. Standing on tiptoe, she looked in. There was the big crate with Tia Dolores' piano inside. Josefina poked her finger through a crack in the crate and touched the polished wood of the piano. She smiled when she remembered the pleasure its music had given her. Then she skipped down to the stream, thinking of the melody Tia Dolores had played. The tune stayed in her head as she did her early morning chores. She gathered eggs, singing it. She swept the courtyards, dancing to it. She piled wood next to the fireplaces in time to its rhythm. When the village church bell rang its call to prayers at 7 o'clock, it seemed to ring along with the tune. And when the family said morning prayers together in front of the small altar in the family sala, dedicating their day's work to God, their voices seemed to rise and fall just as the piano notes had. The music seemed to be everywhere Josefina went. Tia Dolores did too. Tia Dolores was interested in everything. At breakfast, she said, I want to see as much of the rancho as I can today. So after breakfast, Josefina led Tia Dolores through the orchard, past the cornfields and to the stream. They filled water jars and carried them up to water the kitchen garden. Then they picked some fat pumpkins for Tia Dolores to take home with her to Santa Fe the next day. I am sure my mother has no pumpkins as big as these in her garden, said Tia Dolores. Wherever she went, Tia Dolores found something to praise. Josefina led Tia Dolores to the weaving room. There, Clara showed her the sheep's wool she had carded, spun, and dyed. Tia Dolores admired the colors. There are no colors finer than these in all of Mexico, she said. Tia Dolores was a good teacher. She showed Clara a faster way to knit the heel on a sock. She showed Francisca how to sew a patch over a hole so that it hardly showed at all. Josefina was in the back courtyard clearing away the dead stems that Florecita had trampled on when Tia Dolores joined her. "I've brought you some seeds to plant," she said to Josefina as she handed her a small package. "Gracias," said Josefina. "I'll help you for a while. Then I promised Ana I would make bread with her," said Tia Dolores. She began to dig holes in the soil for seeds. "Ana has a lot of responsibilities, doesn't she?" "Yes," agreed Josefina. "It's hard for Ana. Mama ran the household so smoothly. But Ana doesn't always know what to do, and Mama is not here to teach her." "Ana is young," said Tia Dolores as she covered some seeds with soil. "It's a good thing she has you and Francisca and Clara to help her." Josefina nodded slowly. "We try," she said. "But sometimes—" She stopped. Tia Dolores gave her a questioning look. Josefina sighed. She dug a little hole in the soil. "You see," she said, "Francisca and Clara fight a lot. They're so different. Clara is careful and practical, and Francisca is so quick and fiery. When Mama was alive, she put a stop to their arguments before they began. But now, well, Ana tries, but she is too soft-hearted, and they won't mind her. I try to joke them out of fighting. Sometimes it works, but sometimes it doesn't." "Blessed are the peacemakers," said Tia Dolores softly, "for they will be called the children of God." She smiled at Josefina. "You know," she said, "it's perfectly natural for sisters to disagree. You should have heard your Mama and me sometimes. She was quite a few years older than I was. I am sure she thought I was a miserable pest. I wanted to be like her. Once I wore her best sash without her permission, and I lost it. Your Mama was very angry. She wouldn't speak to me for days, but she finally forgave me." Josefina realized suddenly, Tia Dolores misses her sister. She misses Mama too, just as much as we do. She said, "I wish you could be here to protect these flowers from Florecita when they bloom." "I'd love to see the flowers," said Tia Dolores. "But you can protect them from Florecita. You aren't afraid of her anymore. You don't need me. You will make your Mama's flowers bloom again and keep them safe, Josefina. I know you will." "Oh, Tia Dolores, it's beautiful," said Ana. She draped a silk rebozo over her shoulders. Its colors were as bright as flowers. "Gracias." It was early afternoon, just after the midday meal. Ana, Francisca, Clara, and Josefina were gathered in the family sala. Tia Dolores had called them together. She had presents for them all. "Francisca," said Tia Dolores, "this is a sewing diary I made for you." She gave Francisca a little handmade book. "There are sketches of dresses in it, and samples of material, and notes about how to make the dresses." "Gracias," said Francisca. Eagerly, she looked at the sewing diary. "The dresses are so elegant, Tia Dolores," she said. "I wish you could be here to help me make them." She looked up and joked, "I am afraid I will sew a sleeve on upside down." "The notes and directions will help you," said Tia Dolores. Francisca looked doubtful. "But I can't read," she said. "None of us can." "Oh," said Tia Dolores. "Well then, just use your good sense. I am sure if you and your sisters help each other, you will do very well." For Clara, Tia Dolores had brought a fine pair of scissors and some sewing needles. Clara was very pleased, because her gift was beautiful and useful. "And this is for you, Josefina," said Tia Dolores. She handed Josefina a necklace, a small, dark red stone, surrounded by gold hung from a delicate chain. Josefina smiled. The necklace was lovely. "Gracias, Tia Dolores," she said. Her hands were shaky with excitement as she put the necklace on. My, said Francisca, isn't that necklace quite grown up? Yes, indeed it is, said Tia Dolores firmly. And isn't Josefina quite grown up too? Francisca said no more. Tia Dolores, said Anna, how did you know what would be the perfect gift for each one of us? Tia Dolores smiled. All the years I lived in Mexico City, I looked forward to the caravans coming, she said. I knew Abuelito would bring stories about all of you and your life here on the rancho. Sometimes he would bring a letter dictated by your mama. I felt as if I were watching you grow up, even though I was far away. When I decided to come home, I enjoyed thinking about what present to bring each of you. Well, said Anna, I'm sorry we didn't know you were coming. We have nothing to give you in return for your gifts. Oh, laughed Tia Dolores. This day with you is all the gift I want. When the afternoon had cooled into early evening, Tia Dolores and Abuelito walked to the village. They wanted to say a prayer at Mama's grave. They were also going to visit Papa's oldest sister who lived in the village. Josefina and her sisters sat in the corner of the front courtyard that was still warm from the heat of the day's sun. Every now and then, they could hear Anna's little boys laughing with Carmen in the kitchen nearby. The sisters were peeling back the husks from roasted ears of corn. They were going to braid the husks together to make a long string of ears so that the corn could be hung out to dry. Josefina said, Hasn't it been nice today, having Tia Dolores here? Yes, said Anna. She was such a help to me, and she was so kind to my little boys. Tia Dolores is a very sensible, hard-working person, said Clara. That was her highest praise. Oh, Clara, protested Francisca. You make her sound as dull as these ears of corn. I found her to be so elegant and graceful. Josefina decided the time had come to tell her sisters her idea. She picked up an ear of corn and peeled the husk slowly. What if, she said quietly, we asked Tia Dolores to stay? No one said anything. They were all too surprised. Josefina went on. She could help us and teach us, the way she did today. She wouldn't stay, said Francisca. She's used to life in Mexico City, where there are lots of grand people and grand houses. She doesn't want to live on a rancho. But she said she always loved to hear about the rancho when Abuelito came to visit her, remember? Said Josefina. And she doesn't act fancy or put on airs. She likes it here. She was interested in everything. Yes, said Anna. But I think perhaps she has come home hoping to get married and start a family of her own. She's not too old for that, you know. She wouldn't have to stay here forever, said Josefina. Just for a few months. And anyway, she's our aunt. We are her family. Clara picked up several ears of corn and put them on her lap. Well, she said in her flat, no-nonsense manner, even if Tia Dolores would be willing to stay, it wouldn't be proper for us to ask her. Papa would have to approve of the idea. He would have to be the one to ask her to stay. Josefina's heart sank. She hadn't thought of that. She knew Clara was right. Who wants to be the one to present the idea to Papa? Clara asked. I certainly don't. She turned to Josefina. It's your idea, she said. Do you want to talk to Papa about it? Josefina looked down at the ear of corn in her hands. No, she said in a small voice. Will you go to him, Anna? Clara asked. You are the oldest. Oh, I couldn't, said Anna. Papa might think I was complaining. If I say that I need Tia Dolores' help, he might think I don't want to do what is my responsibility to do. Ugh, exclaimed Francisca. She stood up and brushed off her skirt. I'm not afraid to talk to Papa. I'll just march right up to him and say, Papa, you must ask Tia Dolores to stay. Anna, Clara, and Josefina looked at each other. They knew that was not at all the right way to speak to Papa. It wasn't that Papa was stern or cold, but he was the patron, the head of the rancho and head of their family. The girls had never presented such an important idea to him before. It would have to be done politely and with respect. Wait, Francisca, said Josefina. She stood up too. I think all of us should speak to Papa. We should go together. That way Papa will see that all four of us would like Tia Dolores to stay. Ana and Clara didn't move. Come on, said Josefina. She grinned. Don't worry. I'll do the talking if you don't want to. Last night I had the courage to stand up to Florecita. Papa is much, much kinder than she is. The sisters found Papa near the animal pens. He was tightening the latch on the gate. He smiled when he saw Josefina. The latch is stronger now, he said. We shouldn't have any more goats in Maman's flowers. That's good, said Josefina. She swallowed. Francisca gave her a little shove forward. Papa, Josefina said, may we ask you something? Papa looked at the four girls. Yes, he said. Do you think, Josefina said carefully, that you could ask Tia Dolores to stay here with us for a while? Ask her to stay? Repeated Papa. Yes, said Josefina. Not forever, just for a while. She could help us, and she could teach us the way Mama did. Please, would you ask her? Josefina saw a look of sadness cross Papa's face. He turned away. I'll consider it, he said. But Papa, Francisca blurted, you must! Josefina tugged on Francisca's sleeve and frowned at her to make her stop talking. Gracias, Papa, said Josefina. She hesitated and then added, we need Tia Dolores. Then she and her sisters left. What do you think Papa will do? Francisca whispered. She and Clara and Josefina were in their sleeping sala getting ready for bed. Do you think he will speak to Tia Dolores? I don't know, said Josefina. I hope so. And if he does ask her, what do you think she will say? Francisca wondered aloud. Josefina sighed. I don't know, she said again. I think you're silly to wonder about it, Clara said. We'll find out tomorrow. Abuelito and the caravan will leave first thing in the morning. Tia Dolores will either leave with him or not. We'll just have to wait and see. Oh, I hate waiting, said Francisca. The three sisters smiled at each other. They all hated to wait. On that, they certainly agreed. The next morning, they were up early. Even Francisca, who was usually slow getting dressed, was ready and waiting with Ana, Clara, and Josefina next to Abuelito's wagon. They watched the servants load Abuelito's small trunk onto the wagon. Then, with sinking hearts, the sisters saw Tia Dolores' trunk loaded onto the wagon as well. Papa didn't ask her, Francisca groaned. Or maybe he did, and she said no, said Ana. Or she doesn't want to stay, Clara added. Josefina was so disappointed she couldn't talk. A lump rose in her throat when she heard Papa and Tia Dolores and Abuelito coming. Suddenly, Josefina didn't want to stand there by the wagon 1 second longer. She couldn't bear to kiss Tia Dolores and Abuelito goodbye. Without a murmur, she slipped away, back inside the house. She went to the gran sala because it was the only room that was sure to be empty. As she walked into the cool darkness of the gran sala, she remembered how it had looked the night of the fandango, full of life and music. Now there was nothing but shadows. Just then, in a corner of the room, Josefina saw a large dark shape. She caught her breath when she saw what it was. It was Tia Dolores' piano. Instantly, Josefina knew what that meant. Tia Dolores would never have left her piano unless... Josefina flew across the courtyard and out the front gate so fast it seemed as if she had wings on her feet. Tia Dolores caught her in her arms. "There you are, Josefina," Tia Dolores said. "I wanted to say goodbye to you." Josefina pulled back and looked at Tia Dolores' face. "I'm going to Santa Fe," Tia Dolores said. "I'm going to see my dear mama, who I have not seen for 10 years. But then I will come back." "When?" asked Josefina. Tia Dolores laughed. "Soon," she said. "And when I come back, I'll stay as long as you need me." Josefina hugged Tia Dolores hard. Then Tia Dolores swung herself up onto the wagon. "Well, well, well," said Abuelito. He pretended to be cross. "Now it seems that if I want to see Dolores, I'm going to have to come down here and see all of you girls too. What a bother! What a bother!" he sighed. "At least I don't have to carry that piano with me today. Though, if we meet up with any thieves, I'll just have to frighten them off with my singing, I suppose." Then he kissed Josefina and her sisters goodbye and gave them his blessing. "Adios, Abuelito," called all the sisters as the wagon pulled away. "Adios, Tia Dolores." "Come back soon," Josefina sang out as she waved goodbye. As soon as the wagon was out of sight, Josefina hurried back inside. She went to the kitchen to get a jar. She wanted to fill the jar with water to sprinkle on Mama's flowers. "Tia Dolores will be back soon," she thought. "I want the flowers to be beautiful when she returns." Josefina set off for the stream, whistling Tia Dolores' tune.